Well, hello there, and welcome to another BTS on Ask Dr. Bitcoin. We don't have a whole ton of educational content today other than me reacting to some Instagram videos. We don't really do a lot of reaction videos, but we're going to try it out today. It's just, I guess, the algorithm on Instagram was targeting me with a ton of crypto content this week, which doesn't usually happen when I'm surfing around on the app. And just a bunch of really wonky takes that I felt like, my brain just felt like it had to get out there and correct. So maybe we'll learn something. But we're gonna watch a bunch of stuff. Sohail says he's got some stuff for me as well. So we'll discover some of this stuff together. Stay tuned. Let's roll the intro. All right. So I don't even remember. So this is all like a week old for me at this point. So I don't even remember what we're going to be looking at. So it'll almost be like seeing it again for the first time. You got everything kind of queued up there, so
Yep, just pulling it up.
sweet. So this guy. Oh yes, this is the first one. This was okay, yeah. I won't spoil it. Let's watch what he has to say.
One second.
Sure.
Shit.
I vaguely remember what it was. But it's something like yeah. Who's behind Bitcoin? This comes up a lot. More often, not a lot, more often than I'd like.
All right.
Okay.
Created shop.
A guy with a Japanese name. Yeah, okay. So there's a whole old axiom that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And I mean, I can't tell if it's just me that I hear this stuff and I cringe so hard, or if this stuff resonates. I mean, obviously it resonates. The guy's got what, 47,000 likes, probably a bunch of, 10 times that many views, 100 times that views. So like it's resonating, which is unfortunate because like obviously cryptography is going to be studied by the NSA. The cryptography is primarily before the world of cryptocurrency, cryptography was used for spycraft, for secret messages, for privacy. So the National Security Agency studying cryptography is not exactly mind-blowing, earth-shattering revelation. And the fact that there was somebody with a Japanese name credited with the study of cryptography as applied to cryptocurrency or as applied to digital commerce, um, again, not a surprising revelation. Um, to make the leap between there is a guy who at the NSA studied cryptography as it applies to commerce to this guy with a Japanese sounding name is Satoshi Nakamoto. Um, I mean, look, I guess it's not outside the realm of possibility, but it's also, I mean, you might as any. There's so many other people with that name, the exact name, like Dorian Nakamoto, who was, of course, Time Magazine's suspect for who Satoshi Nakamoto was soundly disproven that it was him. So this is just like again, like I said at the top, a little knowledge being a dangerous thing. It's not, but let's take for a moment and pretend as if this was anywhere close to possibly being correct. Let's say the NSA created Bitcoin. So what? All the code is open source and publicly auditable. There's not secret backdoors inside of Bitcoin. There cannot be. It's all open source. You can audit the code. You can verify that this code is the same code that runs inside of your wallet or inside of a Bitcoin mining operation by doing a thing called a checksum. That's the thing where you can. It's very again related to the cryptography as a concept, where you can compile the code, look at the code that is as is downloaded, and then look at the compiled version that you create and compare it to the compiled version that you download. And when the checksums match, that means it's the same code. That's how you can verify that your code is, and even if 1 or 2 bits are off, the checksum is going to be different. So you can't slide something by you. There's no secret backdoors in any of the Bitcoin software. Otherwise, we would know about it. They would be public and open backdoors.
Front doors, if you will.
Yeah, it would be a front door with a welcome mat.
What was that guy's objective there?
So that's a great question. I think maybe just to get clicks or views, because like I've fielded the question from a lot of folks that are just passingly familiar with Bitcoin, and they have a vague and general distrust of the government, which, that there's a lot of overlap between Bitcoiners and people that have a vague and general distrust of the government. But when you don't understand the technology behind it or the foundations of Bitcoin, it's very easy to let that kind of cloud of distrust cover both things when you realize the NSA, the CIA, and a lot of other techno literate intelligence organizations and various governments around the world have been playing with cryptography for decades. Oh yeah, let this around. So that was that. I mean, I don't disagree that Gary Gensler is a bad guy. I mean, like, again, this is like taking this is like, I guess think going to be a common theme between a lot of the videos that we watched today, or at least a few of them. They're taking this vague distrust of the government, and now that SEC has sort of blessed crypto, they're like trying to use this kind of affinity to sow distrust in the underlying asset somehow. In this situation, it's very roundly rebutted by BitShares, who put out proof of reserve. They're the first ETF to do it, but they're not the. I doubt they'll be the only ETF to do it, because they're all using essentially the same backend, and they can all easily show, hey, this is the address with all of our crypto in it. Um, the what he's saying is flatly incorrect, though. It's not just a price representation of Bitcoin. Part of the requirements of the licensing from the SEC for these ETFs is that the hard asset must be behind it. It's not just paper Bitcoin. Um, is it as safe as owning non-custodial Bitcoin? Absolutely not. No, I totally agree with the sentiment that if you can understand how to control your own keys, then you should absolutely have a preference for owning non-custodial Bitcoin, not putting it into an ETF. But that's simply not realistic of a solution for a variety of applications. You putting stuff into retirement accounts for the vast majority of people is there are hoops you can join or hoops you can jump through that will allow you to custody your own Bitcoin and keep it in your retirement account, but it's not feasible for the vast majority of people that manage these types of funds. It's simply going to unlock a ton more capital that will flow into actual Bitcoins that now that these ETFs have existed, and that's being proven on chain. So, I mean, like there is hard proof. Go to blockchain.info, look at the Bitwise ETF custodial or non-custodial address, and you can actually see refutation of the point being made in this video.
You want to look at the comments?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's
What are they saying? I can't
take
really
a
read
look
it
at
from
the-
here.
Okay,
but
I'll
maybe you
blow
can
them
read
up
something.
for you real quick, or I'll read. Okay, so Baldy _385 design said, "Facts: the rich and powerful can now skim off the top as they wish." Is that really what this guy was getting at?
I mean, I don't think that's what the point was saying, because he was saying the Bitcoin is not actually being purchased. He's saying it's just paper Bitcoin. So they're scamming people. That's not correct. I think it is correct to say that the big and powerful, I mean, there's no doubt that all these fund managers are big and powerful organizations, are going to be skimming on the top. It's not illegal. It's not as illegal as that sounds. That's called fees. And frankly, you're going to pay fees no matter how you acquire Bitcoin. If you're buying it OTC, if you're buying it through Coinbase or Cash App, or if you're buying it through an ETF, fees are going to get paid.
Okay, got some more. Here, let me pull it up. So this one says, "Wouldn't touch it either. I already have all I need in life, and I don't need to be a millionaire." That's
I mean, more power to you if you've got all you need in life. And I mean, no one's gonna make you buy Bitcoin.
it's about price action, not value.
I don't know what it is. I mean, price action is like good, I guess. I mean, like the more it's traded, uh, the more individual dollar cost averagers can acquire. I mean, dollar cost averaging flourishes in a volatile market.
My favorite, pump and dump coming, and all the retail investors who chase the pump will be the bag holders.
I don't know. Like that's like seems to imply that Bitcoin is going to zero. I think we're well past that. I mean, everyone's going on TV and saying Bitcoin is the new gold,
Yeah,
especially all these
the
large organizations.
concept of Bitcoin being pump and dumped is funny to me.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I get it though. Everything else is pump and dump. So
I mean, like if you're talking about like, whatever the new dog coin is that comes out next week, absolutely. It's very easy to manipulate these very tiny markets, but it's like basically a $1 trillion market. Bitcoin is. No single investor is going to be manipulating that market.
this is an interesting comment. It says Bitcoin has a high learning curve, period.
I mean, that's accurate. That's accurate. And that's why these ETFs have a market. It's the rails that have grown to exist around traditional finance are rails that took 100 years to evolve. And Bitcoin is only a decade and a half old. So we cannot expect it to be as easy to learn that paradigm as the old paradigm.
Can we go back to the first one real quick and
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at some
yeah.
comments? So someone said, "Tell me you can't write code without saying you can't write code" to him.
Somebody said that, huh?
Yeah. And then right below you, "I believe he is right. I think it's how the CIA moved money around the world to pay for things they do privately."
I mean, maybe that is a future goal of the CIA, is to use Bitcoin and crypto for that. But the CIA's budgets are such that you couldn't necessarily hide them very easily inside. And I know, actually, I don't know if I should say this on camera or not. I have been asked by people in government, in the military industrial complex, to explain to them how to use crypto for things like this. And once they understood the scale of capital and what moves the market, it simply isn't feasible for most applications. You're trying to like covertly fund the Ukraine war or even a South American war. You're going to cause ripples in the market that people are going to observe and go, "What the heck is this?" Right?
I don't know, Mark. I've heard that crypto is being used increasingly for terrorist organizations. So I don't know why the CIA wouldn't get in on that.
Why would Elizabeth Warren lie? I can't imagine why she would tell us lies like that. So it's got to be true.
The comparison between the two Japanese sounding names by some white dude is hilarious.
Yeah, I agree.
Now we have some lady. Hold on.
Yeah,
I hate this. God.
it's just the audio going muted by default. So this feels like it's out of context, and I feel like with context, I could say if I totally agree or totally disagree. If this was given to me on my feed within seconds of the first guy who was comparing Bitcoin to, an NSA plant type deal, and so I was like, okay, this feels kind of conspiratorial. I mean, on the one hand, I mean, we could be honest. Like BlackRock is not like they're not an altruistic company. They don't make all their investments like with some sort of like positive ecosystem benefit, and they're just about making money. Um, I feel like the messaging that comes from Larry Fink and a lot of the folks involved in BlackRock uh, tends to reinforce, I wouldn't say cypherpunk messaging, but at least a lot of the core messaging around Bitcoin and its value proposition. And they know that this is a major new market. And if they neuter Bitcoin too much, it will lose the value proposition that will make people want to invest in it. It's so to me, it's a delicate dance that they're playing. They definitely prefer to be the middleman between you and your cryptocurrency, but I think based on their messaging, they are aware that if they neuter it too much, if they play too far into the choke point 2.0 stuff that we know is happening, that they will destroy everything that they are building towards. I mean, because you got Larry Fink not just talking about how the value of Bitcoin as the new version of gold, but you also see him talking about the value of DAOs and really down market new innovations that haven't even been fully baked out yet, and talking about why those things are good, why it's good to tokenize assets, and why it's good to have transparency on chain. These are not the things you hear from an investment group that is trying to destroy value. Um, they just are doing what hedge funds do, which is trying to profit off of new things.
Yeah, it's an out of context clip, but she's not wrong in anything she said, really. I don't.
She's not. Yeah, it really kind of depends on the
Yeah.
context. If I would say wrong or right, like if she's saying, well, they're trying to kill Bitcoin and play into this whole choke point 2.0 thing. I don't think I'd agree. Not BlackRock.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
JP Morgan, if she was like accusing them of this, I would absolutely 100% agree. JP Morgan is absolutely trying to choke out Bitcoin crypto and the value it provides.
Okay, I'm excited for this next one. My favorite dude. Well, he's tied with Mike Pillow. Wait,
Right.
did this guy die?
Oh yeah, no,
He did, right?
I'm gonna note to the editors. I'll give you some photographs. John's my buddy, or was my buddy. Rest in peace. Used to work with us at Silicon Angle back in the day. So Yeah. So, man, I don't know that I necessarily would have responded to John McAfee or a John McAfee video coming up on my feed back in 2019 because the culture was so much more cypherpunk back then. But now it feels so alien. Like we've become so milk toast as a blockchain culture that like it almost feels like I'm doing a public service elevating because he's dead right. Basically you hear it's almost repeated to a degree that's silly whenever there's a problem on in the world, some war, some famine, whatever. The Bitcoiners like to go, well, Bitcoin fixes this, but really John McAfee had it down, just had the facts right, like all the ways in which government controlled currency affects every aspect of life, and creating a separation between state and finance does work towards fixing so much. And that's it. It's hard to sometimes it's hard to kind of point towards John McAfee and not have to do a whole bunch of explaining as to why you're not a conspiracy theorist. But I mean, I don't see anything here in what he's saying that doesn't make a ton of sense. Uh, and to your point originally, when you brought the clip in, you asked if he had died. Yeah, he died in prison as a result of relentless persecution from the government. Did he invite it on himself? Yeah, because he said a lot of crazy things and he liked to literally flip the government the bird and dared the
That
IRS to
doesn't
come after
matter.
him. But he dared the IRS to come after him. They did, and then they let him die in a Spanish prison awaiting extradition. So,
That's right. I
yeah.
forgot about that whole story. That's crazy.
Yeah. But, I think you know, problematic past acknowledged when you talk about John McAfee, but the whole ecosystem is poor to have him no longer within it.
Huh. That's a good clip right there.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah, I honestly think we probably ought to go back and find some old John McAfee keynote footage from different conferences and do some more reaction stuff or chop it up somehow.
McAfee deep dive.
Dude, he's like, okay, there's a lot of documentaries out there about him. He's a cool, like exciting guy to talk about. I mean, he was on the run for a number of years from the cartels and the governments. uh my buddy John Casaretto and I had a like a personal connection to that when we worked with him at Silicon Angle. We actually, his all of his funds in his Swiss accounts were locked up. He had no money. So we're like, hey man, after we did an interview with him one time, we're like, hey, can we get you to write for Silicon Angle? I mean, we'll pay you, and that'll keep you on your feet while you get your money back or whatever. And he's like, yeah, we'll do that. Gave us the most unhinged, wild editorials you've ever seen. Um, but it allowed us to get close to him and understand what he's about, and kind of. I've got some unreleased footage of him when he came into my office and was talking about internet security that maybe we should do something with at some point. But interesting guy, definitely played a character for the media, but also had a serious and intellectual side to him as well.
All right. Who's next? Let's see. AVAX Avalanche.
Oh yeah, they're doing a lot of media right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is an interesting thing. I'm of two minds here. I've been involved with the NFT world, which is kind of what they're part of what they're talking about with RWAs, real world assets. since it was conceived of. My buddy Cody Marks Bailey is a Dallas startup guy, developer. He's now kind of a world citizen, lives everywhere. But he was in the committee that helped write the ERC 721 specification, told me about it a couple of weeks later, and I've been obsessed with NFTs as a concept ever since then. Less about art for me and more about what is being talked about here in this Avalanche clip, real world assets. This is why I was kind of surprised. What I'm about to say is kind of why I was surprised that art took off as the first real application for NFTs rather than something else like supply chain or derivatives or anything else like that. Is that we don't have the ecosystem currently that reliably supports uh, the connection between the real world and NFTs to create tokenized RWAs. I'm hearing a lot of talk about RWAs in the mainstream media coming from Larry Fink, coming from just general CNBC sources. Even Jamie Dimon was talking about it, this gentleman. And what we need, and I think we've got an episode that we've got in the can we haven't released yet talking about data oracles. We've talked about them in the past in previous seasons of Ask Dr. Bitcoin. We need a robust and functioning Oracle ecosystem for blockchain before we can really move forward in this real world asset tokenization future that he's talking about here. Looks like I caught this early. No comments on this clip either.
Yeah. I mean, this is something for me, like a tangential person in the space or even outsider. The tokenization of real world assets. No one talks about it unless you're Lee Bratcher, who did a PhD on it. Like
Yeah.
no one talks about it, which is so it's interesting. Someone posited the question to Corey, right?
Mhm.
About tokenization of blockchain, and Corey's answer was literally, it doesn't affect his market, right? It doesn't affect anyone he works with, but it also doesn't affect 99% of middle America flyover people, at least now, and he doesn't foresee it affecting anyone's day-to-day transactions, asset investment, real estate purchases for decades, if ever.
I don't know that I agree with that. That's just a lack of education. Corey doesn't so when it comes to real estate, Corey's a real estate guy for those who are watching that don't know. Whenever you're talking about tokenization of assets in real estate, this is not universally true, but most of the time what you're talking about is title, chain of custody stuff,
Right.
title search. Corey, if you also ask Corey what the role of PHP and MySQL is in real estate, he would also have a similar answer. And that's because in this situation, blockchain and tokenization is a protocol layer, right? You would also have the same answer about email, right? Also another protocol. We're not talking about something that the endpoint is going to be touched by most end users, but it does create a world of investment opportunities once that layer is firmly in place.
Fair. Right? I think the conversation was primarily tokenized ownership of, like, a commercial residential building or so. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, but that can't really exist until you have a standard for ownership that exists on the blockchain for the actual titles and deeds. Right?
Yeah.
You can't, like, other than because after that, it's just, I mean, you can do it. It's not going to be very standardized or well respected. It's going to be very much akin to what we currently see with platforms like lambda.com, where you can have collective ownership of rent houses, which, that's cool. And they're making a good business out of that, but it's not open source and it's not blockchained. And it's not like it's a multi-trillion-dollar market for that one website, right? It's just that one website and its users, which is probably like in the hundreds of millions of dollars, not inconsequential, but it's certainly not a standard. And that's until we see an underlying standard for title ownership on chain, you're not going to see tokenization become that big of a deal. And there's a lot of, I mean, that's a whole hour of discussion as to what are the stumbling blocks to make that happen.
Well, okay, I have something for you. So
Cool.
we 2 years ago at Consensus, we interviewed this lady who had this company that was focused on putting, I believe, egg donation data on the blockchain. It was called Egg Chain, right? And people were freaking out at that time about all of these uses, either biotech uses of putting like your freaking whatever pretty personal data on there, to like egg donation trend. People were freaking out at that time about all of these uses, either biotech uses of putting like your freaking whatever pretty personal data on there, to like egg donation tracking and whatnot. And the blockchain people pretend to get it, I think. Do you get it?
So I created a proof of concept in conjunction with a old company that I was involved in, now defunct, that was putting your genetic data on chain in a way that could be used, licensed, shared, monetized via, you know, various like genetic studies type things. I get I don't know necessarily if I get what, because I'm not familiar with this egg chain guys and what their, or gals, or whatever their team is. I don't know what their specific focus is, but if it's anything like what I am familiar with in the past, the idea here, at least part of the idea, is that there is a ton of balkanization of standards within the medical field in general. Just like there is in the title and land industry, there's a ton of balkanization of standards and storage methodology, just by virtue of how that industry looks. There's a ton of diversity. There's not a lot of monopoly. When you don't have a lot of monopoly, or you don't have a strong industry organization setting standards at the top, then you have a huge diversity of information management systems. And so the idea that you can create a standardized database, essentially Web3 enabled, meaning the user owns their own data, not a centralized database, but it's still indexable and searchable and licensable, opens up a lot of scientific research that does not currently exist. Because the biggest stumbling block, as it turns out, to medical scientific research is not motivation or funding. It's finding the right people to fill out the studies, finding the right medically, filtered people, people with the right genetic condition or the right set of disorders. Just being able to find those people is not something you can do because of HIPAA laws and because of the balkanization of databases that have to do with medical data.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was a national standard, or a blockchain based standard for having, pseudonymous data available to be licensed for these types of studies, you would find a ton of other secondary applications and benefits that would grow out of that. And so I don't know if that's what these egg chain guys are doing. That's certainly what was the focus of the project I was on.
Yeah, I refreshed my understanding of it, and it's database stuff. It's whenever we were talking at that time 2 years ago, there was everyone just spitting out the same buzzwords about ownership and owning your own data, and all that bullshit.
Well, GDPR left a big, footprint in the digital world, right? It was billed as a bit more draconian than it has turned out to be in implementation. But theoretically, based upon how the law was written, it could feasibly be a corporate death sentence if you fall afoul of GDPR, because the fines that are possible to give to a GDPR non-compliant organization would kill all but the biggest organizations in the world, like Microsoft and Google, and it would certainly still damage them if they were adhered to the way that they are written. So Web3, for a time before it turned out that the EU was going to be more lenient than they had, had threatened to be. Web3 really looked like a possible out in terms of how do you still have this data availability layer without having the liability? And the answer with Web3 was you let people own their own data on a platform and make their own licensing decisions.
So we got one more of yours and then one of mine, then we'll be good.
Sweet.
Every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every bottle of fine wine, every collectible car, every piece of real estate, every private business, everything of value in the world will eventually be a token. This adoption of technology, this evolution, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution of technology, that everything of value will be a token on a blockchain. Not a coin, not a thing. It's literally a line item on a public ledger. Everything of value will be, and every transaction of value will happen in digital assets. You don't need the pieces of paper. Wipe out all of DTCC, which processes $1.8 quadrillion a year. That is a large number. That will all move to digital. And when it does, it will create massive wealth, the greatest wealth creation opportunity I'm going to see in my lifetime. At every stock, every bond, every currency, every
We're in the bull. You'd know we're in the bull when you start hearing this. I love it. I love to hear it. This is it's a lot of fun. This is exactly what we've been kind of talking about. This he's talking about RWAs. He's talking about NFTs. This is the tokenization of everything, the blockchain. I mean, I'm here for it, right? I think so. What's funny is what he's saying without saying it is, if done according to best first principles of blockchain, is he's talking about worldwide anarchy as order. It's we don't need middlemen anymore. We just tokenize the things that matter to us and use an intermediate protocol to exchange things worldwide. Again, and I don't know if he knows this and just didn't want to delve into it for the crowd he was talking to, but this requires a robust and sophisticated ecosystem of data oracles that we currently do not have. There's a lot of promising projects that are working on solving that problem, but currently we don't have the ecosystem to support the real world asset tokenization of everything that he's talking about. I am definitely looking forward to that digital utopia, though, that he's describing.
So our conversation earlier about EggChain would have been a good segue, but have you heard of this creator? Have you seen her? Have you heard of her?
No, I don't know. I don't know that I do, but I think I know the story she's talking
so let's
about.
watch the story and then
Yeah.
let's talk about the creator, because I think this is a content gold mine for us.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, where's this liquidity going to come from? And the Lord says, trust me.
That was a pastor for an online ministry based in Colorado who was just charged by the state Securities and Exchange Commission, along with his wife, for running a cryptocurrency scam that took over $1.3 million from his followers. He and his wife then allegedly spent the money on a Rolls Royce, designer handbags, and jewelry.
Have you heard of this?
I've heard of the story.
He recorded a video to try to explain to his
$1.3 million
followers what
is actually
happened.
not a lot when it comes
It's
to
9 minutes long, so I
cryptocurrency
made you a
scams,
supercut.
Caitlin
Yeah.
and I are being charged in a civil charge
Here's a supercut
from the
shout out
Colorado
to
Securities and Exchange
this
Commission
person.
for basically selling millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency that is deemed worthless by the state. Now, the reason that they're saying that it's worthless is because there is no exit for people who have bought. We launched an exchange. The exchange technology failed. Things went downhill, and from that point forward, we've just been waiting on the Lord, literally, for a miracle. So, the charges are that Caitlin and I pocketed $1.3 million, and I just want to come out and say that those charges are true.
Won't the devs do something? And by devs, I mean God.
So there's been $1.3 million that's been taken out of, I think it was a total of 3.4 million. But out of that 1.3, $500,000 went to the IRS, and a few $100,000 went to a home remodel that the Lord told us to do.
What
So how this
model?
whole thing started.
Home remodel. Come on, Mark. A home remodel.
A home remodel. Got it.
remodel,
Got it.
yeah.
I was like, is this a technical term? I don't home remodel? A model of economic. Okay, got it.
Started is the Lord told us in 21 to walk away from our marketing company, and He said, "I'm going to do a new thing." And then He took us into this cryptocurrency. It was a different cryptocurrency other than index coin at the time. Well, that cryptocurrency turned out to be a scam. And so the Lord says, give that to them, but also give them a 10x. Well, as money is coming in, we would be sowing it. And at first it was $100, thousands of dollars, then tens of thousands of dollars. Money would come in, we tithe, we sow, more money would come in. And so we were just always under the impression that God was going to provide, that the source was never ending, that God was doing a new thing, and that we had nothing to worry about. We sold a cryptocurrency with no clear exit. We did. We took God at His word and sold a cryptocurrency with no clear exit.
Okay, so,
And so the
have you ever heard of a Ponzi? So this is
Yes.
this is actually it dovetails perfectly in some news that's coming out today. If you go to Tech Meme and it's like the down towards the lower quadrant of the page, there is a DOJ announcement about I think it was a New Jersey based couple or something like that, or maybe it was Florida based. I forget which state it was. Well, not this one, but it was a large scale cryptocurrency scam is the way the DOJ positioned it, but it's not. This has nothing to do with cryptocurrency, just as this other scam has nothing to do with cryptocurrency either. It's just a old school Ponzi, right? They were paying out old investors with new investors. Basically, yeah, this is a $9 billion hyper fraud, cryptocurrency fraud. This is just a Ponzi scheme. It just because it has the word crypto in their marketing does not make it cryptocurrency fraud, because the money is in fiat, the payout is in fiat. In the case of Hyperfund, the crypto never even existed. Like it was again, I haven't delved deeply into Hyperfund. I've never heard of them, but I've seen 100 scams that look just like what the DOJ is describing. And almost all the cases, because you get hit up on, if you're on Telegram, if you're on Twitter, and you do anything about cryptocurrency, you're going to get one of these scams pitched to you every single week. And it always looks exactly the same. You go to the web page and it's either some PO box or some co-working space in London with a smart sounding, fintech type address. The office doesn't actually exist though. If you go like on Google Earth and look at it, and they always promise these well over reasonable returns. Like in Hyperfund's case, I think it was 1 or 2% a day or something like that. You're never going to see that in a scalable investment solution. It's simply, they call it there's another term for that within the scam world called HYIP, high yield investment something. I can't remember the P stands for. High investment program, I believe. But they're all scams, right? And they don't have anything to do with crypto. They'll give you a website that you can log into that shows you your balance and how much cryptocurrency you own. But if you ever try to withdraw it, you won't ever be able to withdraw it. It's simply using crypto as a way to get you to give them money. There's very little difference between that and what this couple was doing, other than the fact that maybe this couple was ignorant enough to believe that they had discovered something new, when in fact they were just selling, they were selling air. So fugazi, they were selling something that didn't exist, and just thinking that God was somehow behind it. I mean, this is just because
He's a pastor, so he's used to selling air and something that doesn't exist. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how
Sorry.
far down that rabbit hole I want to go, because like I don't disagree. I don't want to piss off the largest single demographic of the United States, but there's a ton of examples throughout history of American Protestant Pentecostal church history of pastors taking advantage of their flock, and sometimes they go into it thinking that they are legitimately performing God's will because they've convinced themselves that of some sort of prosperity doctrine garbage. And then sometimes they are going into it with eyes wide open, understanding that what they're doing is a grift, and that they just don't care, and their hope is that they just get away with it. I've met both types. Some of you know I was locked up in Beaumont in federal custody. I've met both types while I was locked up. And it doesn't make a difference if you truly
intent doesn't matter.
Yeah, in this case, I mean, like, I guess there's the legal concept of mens rea, but at the end of the day, if you are ignorant in stealing, or if you were eyes wide open in stealing, at the end of the day, you've still victimized a bunch of people for the same amount of money.
Right. So this creator, Molly White, I was looking for this story because it's about a week old or week and a half old. So Molly White is a researcher, software engineer, writer, and prominent critic of cryptocurrency and blockchain-based projects. Also, shout out to Molly White for compiling that video. But she is best known for her website, Web3 is Going Just Great, which documents only some of the many disasters in the cryptocurrency and Web3 industries.
That's where I know this name from. So I didn't recognize her face, but I know the site. I would say he's a friend, but I've kind of like, we've written each other off. Somebody was in the Free Ross DAO project with me, decided he was going to troll me the entire time I was in prison. And once a week, he would print out every article from Web3 is Going Great and mail it to me.
Wow.
Just so I have an extreme personal hatred for that website, because it's not good faith criticism of cryptocurrency. It's just someone has made their entire personality of I hate blockchain and so
that's what I'm saying. We should
critique everything she puts out. I'm down.
Correct,
Sure.
yeah.
Web3 is going great. That's the new show we're doing.
Mark, you have a lot of falling outs. Are we ever going to fall out?
I don't. I'm old. I've only had maybe like a dozen falling outs in my life, my 45 years. It's just, there's a lot of, just sounds like a lot because I bring it up.
Yeah. I hope not.
I hope not either.
Okay. I'm done. I got to pee real bad.
Well, you should do that. And we've got all the videos done, so I appreciate those that stuck around on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere else.
Cool.